I'm a 3D artist, and in this video, I updated my deranged 3D Battle Cat simulator with evolutions, hundreds of animations, and like a million other things, starting with an entirely new campaign. The battles themselves take place in these arenas where you step on this giant button, a bunch of bases spawn, and you fight your way out with an army of very disturbing cats. I started by making a giant mountain range surrounding this dusty depot-looking valley of some sort of gray sand, based on the banner art for the Nekolugas. They're some of my favorite designs from the real game, simply because of how absolutely uncomfortable they are to look at. I ended up making these giant smoke spirals and spinning clouds by baking out a bunch of nodes in Blender and then hitting them with that Z-axis transform. It honestly turned out a lot better than I expected. I even made this particle system of birds flying off into the distance. It really makes it feel like it's straight out of a Scooby-Doo episode. And finally, to wrap things up, I added the creepiest drone noise I could find on top of everything and this sad piano thing going on in the background. The effort here is slightly higher than the cylinder of grass I made last time. The whole reason I made this project 9 months ago is because the Battle Cats gave me this 3-week challenge to make Battle Cats 3D. I'm not a game developer, but it's my favorite mobile game, so I tried my best. But there's no animations, there's only 10 cats as opposed to 700, so they weren't exactly impressed. But they decided to give me one more chance after my audience would not shut up about it for 9 months straight, so I have 3 more weeks to fix this game, or the project is canceled for real this time. For week 1, my plan is to make the most important things first, and just tell myself in the mirror that I'll get the rest of it done eventually. Based on the feedback, the most important thing to add is definitely animations. It might not sound like a big deal, but adding animations for a game like this is like carving a human face out of tungsten. You need cycles for walking, attacking, knockback, idling, and everything needs to match the original game, frame perfectly, or it's not going to look right. For the basic movement, I'm using skeletal rigs made out of bones that can deform different parts of the model. I was kind of worried I would be sitting here looking back and forth from my phone to try and match it up perfectly, but it turns out the wiki has this animation reference thing that lets you see each individual frame of every unit's animation. I don't think I would have made it through without this thing, so whoever made it, you saved somebody's life today. Some of the animations are literally impossible to make by just moving and rotating and scaling things, and that is where shape keys come in. Basically, that means you can manually shape your model however you want and animate between those shapes with a single slider. It's a lot of work to set up, but it's basically required to get the animations as accurate as possible. I hooked all the animations up in the code, and they're working pretty well, but that's when I realized some of the animations actually swap out the face completely, or do ridiculous nonsense like this that's only possible with a sprite sheet. So for my system, I decided to make each of the unique frames individually, combine them into a long sheet called an atlas, and then rewrite the shaders so you can just say, "Hey Godot, would you mind setting the frame to number 3 please?" And then it's like, "Yeah dude, no problem. How about I just do this?" Huh? What then? Yeah, it took a bit of setup, but it works really well. Honestly, I'm surprised I didn't have more problems with this. It's actually kind of scary, like something is about to go terribly wrong, but it looks amazing. It's a huge difference, and everything just feels so much more alive compared to when they just sine waved up and down. Just like the real game, I made the walk animation play in the upgrade menu, so it's a bit less motionless, but the steps to make a unit now are absolutely insane. I made this checklist to make sure I remember all the little things to keep track of, and there are no less than 40 steps now to make a new unit. That's up from like 10 before I added animations. Despite all that, it is still definitely worth it, and nothing's really stopping you from just adding the model without animations if you really want. But there's a slight problem that all these animations bring to the table, and that is performance. I already had to spend weeks optimizing the code last time, and that was before everything was animated. YouTuber games aren't exactly known for having great code or anything, but basically what I'm getting at is to move forward, I need to rewrite the entire game in C#, a language which is technically faster for what I'm doing. I don't know the language exactly, but that's never stopped me, and 5,000 lines of code later, I rewrote the entire thing in about a week. Now that the arena is done, we're gonna need animations, enemies, bases, and levels for it. The real game probably has about 1,000 at this point. Every update, they usually add more. Like right now, there's this big Sonic the Hedgehog collab going on from August 4th to August 18th. Meanwhile, we've been rolling with this empty field on a pillar for some reason. It does have a single tree, I mean that's nice, but I'm pretty happy with the new one, and there's nothing stopping us from adding more. Most of the levels in the base game are made using a single tileable texture. Like this stage, Green Hill Zone, they added this for the Sonic collab based on the classic Sonic levels. In fact, they added 5 entire exclusive maps with custom music and dozens of individual stages. I would do that too, but you know, skill issue. It's always so out of left field to see other franchises in Battle Cats form. Like look at the Sonic cat. This is what pure art looks like. These animations are what I would say I aspire to creatively. They're giving away a lot of stuff for free each day, like Tails Cat, which you can get for free just for logging in for 5 days during the event. You can roll Sonic, Knuckles, and the rest of them from the capsules, and you can fight Shadow the Hedgehog with a giant pizza. This game is probably the most bizarre concept I've ever seen. You probably don't want to miss the collab, so if you haven't already, download the Battle Cats right now using my link, or I will drop the cat into the the eternal abyss. And while you're at it, check out the trailer for the Sonic collab too. If you like my videos, you'll probably really like this game. I've been playing it since middle school and I'm still only halfway through the main story. It's crazy. Big thanks to BattleCats for sponsoring. Thank me later. But that's enough of that. Let's get back to the video. Animation time. I got a couple of my friends to help make them. I think that's justified given that there are literally hundreds of them to make. Starting with the first 10 cats from last time. I can't talk about every single one of them. My favorites are probably the tank cat because this is what I look like trying to make this project. The cow cat has the udders now. I wouldn't forget something like that twice. Fish cat looks ridiculous. Why did the animators do this to me? Next, we animated all the enemies. Most of these are pretty easy since I picked the easiest models on purpose when I made this game in the first place. Now, the player model is a tricky one because this one doesn't actually have that many animations in the game. He runs in, he's out of breath, and that's it. For my walk cycle, I cranked the expressiveness up to 11. He's got this elastic jello consistency going on. The water bottle's flinging around, the hat's going crazy up there. It might seem kind of exaggerated up close, but it looks so good in game. I even made a bunch of facial expressions to swap through so he can blink and be traumatized. For the idle animation, he starts out of breath, which is kind of funny because he does this every single time he stops walking. Take one step, pause, gotta take a breather. The animation even speeds up if the player is sprinting. One problem we had before is that the player can literally fly because if you sprint too long, you get disabled, but that also disables gravity. People were turning into a high IQ movement tech where you can physically slide above enemies to get around them. So out of respect, I actually decided to keep it, but instead of just disabling gravity, it works kind of like a dash that launches you higher depending on how long you sprinted for. I even added this animation where he does this. This is what peak physical form looks like. Moving on, priority number 2 is the cat evolution system, of course. Basically, when your cats hit level 10, they turn into a new form, which could have different stats, abilities. Sometimes they turn into people. There's actually up to 4 different forms, but for my own sanity, I'm going to focus on the second one. Now we just make it unlock at level 10 and add a button to swap through forms depending on whether or not I felt like modeling it. Currently, they're just a sphere, so it doesn't crash the game when it asks for a model that doesn't exist, but that's about to change. Unfortunately, adding a new unit is a huge hassle now because every single one of them has about 30 different stats. I don't personally want to devote 3,000 lines of code to setting up attack frames, so I came up with a pretty cool workaround where all the stats are ported to a spreadsheet and the game just automatically registers everything by reading the spreadsheet. Now everything is in one place, so if you want to change something, you don't have to scroll through a million lines of code. You can just add a column instead of manually adding it to every block of code, hoping and praying that you didn't accidentally miss one. Now I just write some quick JavaScript to export the biggest JSON you've ever seen, paste it in there, and it's done. For the models, I ended up referencing the real game and copying it one for one. Basic cat becomes macho cat, literally does nothing except add arms, which I guess now is a total of 6. Very cool. Tank cat becomes wall cat. It's a cube, but with cat ears. Axe cat becomes brave cat. Gross cat becomes one of the most designs in the entire game. Cow cat becomes giraffe. I haven't seen one in real life, but I don't know if I could really call that a lot of the cats have special abilities like massive damage or resistance, and I have technically added a couple already. For this update, there's 3 more abilities I have to add. Strengthen makes cats stronger after they lose a certain amount of health. Survive gives them a chance to tank a hit when they otherwise would have died, and critical gives a chance to deal double damage. It also spawns this particle effect I made using Godot's particle system, which is a great system for making particles in Godot. The final effect feels exactly like the real game, and it even works with the spreadsheet. You just pick the effects you want in a dropdown, set up the threshold and the multiplier, and you're done. So we basically doubled the amount of cats in the game, but it doesn't really do anything right now because you have to actually be able to use them. In the real game, you can set up different loadouts of 10 cats at a time depending on the situation. So I added this cat loadout system to the upgrade menu, and you switch out your cats whenever you want. You just pick your cat from the list, click the button, and there it is. It even swaps when you do the battle menu also summons the right version, and I even added it to the save data so your loadout will stay when you come back. With that, week 3 hit me like a truck, so it's time to lock in and wrap things up. The regular campaign had 50 hard-coded waves, which was made using 50 different JSON files. It worked well enough for only needing one campaign, but I don't want to deal with that anymore, so I ported the whole thing into my spreadsheet system, and I'm pretty sure by the end of this, the whole game will take place in a spreadsheet. This campaign is a lot more difficult than the first one, and we added like 10 new enemies. We got the hippo, we got the penguin, we got the gorilla, we got the sheep, we got the crocodile, we got the dark variants, but the real stars of the show are the lugas. Remember those 3 weird cats I didn't talk about much? Well, each of them have a ridiculous second form that's like the size of a building, and for this campaign, every 10th wave is a boss fight with one of these things, and if you can beat it, you can unlock it to use yourself. Balaluga has this ridiculous long-range freeze attack, so you have to get in between the cooldown. Tikaluga hits for like 10 billion damage, but only hits one thing at a time, and Togaluga just annihilates everything and gets stronger the more damage he takes. Next, I wanted a hub world so the player can actually travel between different campaigns, which I built out of a ton of these modular dojo pieces based on a bunch of traditional architecture references I found. It may not look like much when it's broken down like a bunch of Lego pieces, but it's kind of surprising how well it works when you put everything everything together. The whole building is surrounded by a walled garden since the outside world is an endless void, and there's a covered deck surrounding the whole thing where we can relax and look at the single tree in the backyard. This is the main room, kitchen could go here, stairs go up to the bedroom, and there's even a basement down here for basement things. Normally I would love to waste weeks decorating this house down to the power outlets, but I'm kind of on a time crunch here. Materials look good, collisions look great. Put some grass, add some cicada noises in the background. Maybe we get some hills going on back there. It's kind of bland right now, but this is one of those things that's probably going to have to be updated, unfortunately. To actually get to the campaign, I made this input prompt thing that shows up when you walk up to it. It even grows and shrinks depending on how far away players are. You just tell it what button to use, and then it makes the player... Where did the house go? For the campaign list, I made this entry system where you basically just type new campaign, please, and it automatically generates a new entry for the list. You can scroll up and down, you can use the arrow keys, and when you press space or enter or click, it automatically loads and sends you to whatever scene you picked. You can add as many campaigns as you want, copy, paste 100,000 times, doesn't matter. It gets a little insane when there's more than 100, but that's actually completely realistic to the actual game, so I'm not going to worry about it. But most of it was just ripped from the upgrade menu, so I was able to get this bad boy knocked out in about one day. Next, I just made an actual model for the thing by respectfully borrowing the actual map they use in the real game. Maybe a cute little mug, I don't know. This house is emptier than my brain, we gotta start somewhere. With that, my 3-week timeline was pretty much complete. I didn't get everything I wanted, but the game definitely feels a lot better than it used to. Before I sent it to the Battle Cats, I decided to fix a couple small things. The camera used to just rotate under the world and you could spin it around 360 degrees like a lunatic. I ended up fixing that by checking if anything ends up between the camera and the player and then snapping it to that location. This by itself makes it feel so much more professional, especially in the house. You could just look through the walls. It felt really weird. I also added numpad support for the battle system, just in case the regular number pad and mouse wasn't enough. The other annoying thing was how you couldn't resize the window without the entire interface blowing up. So I messed around with that a lot, and now it supports every resolution, including my ridiculous double-wide 32:9 setup, which is very excessive, but it's super fun to play it this way. But that's about it. So without further ado, this is the Battle Cats 3D Artist Edition. Roll it.
この世界は壊れている。私一人では直せはしない。